Welcome to Points of Change Live. My name is Johnny Ball, and I'm here today to speak to someone who I've befriended on social media networks. He is a Toastmaster, he is a banker, he's an author, he is a professional speaker, and talks regularly about innovation and other things besides. He's also a former European championship in the public speaking evaluations. So that's definitely something we want to get onto. His name is Sabyasachi Sengupta, and we are going to be speaking to him very shortly. He's very kindly said that I can call him Saby. So we'll be speaking to Saby just after the titles. See you in a moment. Well, Saby, welcome to Points of Change. It's really great to be speaking to you.
Thank you so much, Johnny. Thank you for that glorious introduction. I was feeling very shy and humble, but thank you so much. It was really nice and kind.
I probably didn't even do you justice, really, I think, for everything that you were doing. But one of the things we're going to be talking about is your book. But before we get to that, we connected because we're both part of the Toastmasters organization. Yes. And so that's how we got connected with each other. And many of the wonderful people I've connected with over the last several years have been through Toastmasters. And I find it great, not just for practicing the public speaking and developing you, but also for the amazing network that exists worldwide through the Toastmasters organization. How did you come into Toastmasters, and what's been your experience of that organization?
I have been with Toastmasters now for 10 years, over 10 years. I started in 2010 in Utrecht. It's a city in the Netherlands. So what happened is I moved here in the Netherlands to study, and 2010 was a bizarre year because it was very cold winter, snow and everything. I was very depressed. I didn't know I was so attached to the sun, coming from a tropical country, from India. It was pretty depressing. And at some point, my brother told me, you like speaking, you like debating. I've done debates and stuff in my college days. Why don't you check this thing out, Toastmasters? It's a club where people talk. And I'm like, okay, what does that's going to be weird and strange. But around Christmas 2010, I first time went to Toastmasters, and I remember it was a snowed in, everything was closed. There were only few members who actually showed up, like 7 or 8, and they were not even sure that it's going to work out. And they just got me in, and they were like, I still remember my first table topic question that was asked to me that evening. When was the last time you did something for the first time? And my answer was speaking in front of an unknown audience. And I did not know that it will definitely be not the last time I'm going to do that. And from then on, I've been doing that for a long, long time.
Great. That's a great table topic question. I love that. I'm going to remember that one.
Toastmasters is a phenomenal experience. I think I have to say it's one of my most life-changing experience as an expat. It has been that community that gave me confidence, friends, new ideas to do things, and of course some success, winning awards and stuff. People after 10 years not only know me as a speaker, but also a great dancer at district conferences. So that's
okay. That's good to know. That's good to know. So we won't get you to dance on the podcast. It won't help for the people who are just listening as well. we can just tell them you're dancing and they can imagine it. So look, that's fantastic. You clearly have a lot of fun in this organization as well, and it's been a big part of your own development and growth too. Did your background in debating, do you feel that prepared you for public speaking in some ways?
I think I initially thought it did. It did give me the initial confidence where I was not uncomfortable to go and speak, especially like when it comes to table topics. It's just off the cuff, you really get a topic and you have to just shout. But the first time I did a prepared speech, I could feel it was so different because it was 7-minute speech, even if it was the icebreaker, talking about myself. To stand and talk and people are expecting you to move a little. I mean, of course, not the first speech, but I've seen people do that. And I thought that will be so easy to move around, to look people in the eyes, to make powerful pauses. Debate is really like go crazy, bam, bam, bam. You sometimes you're standing, sometimes you're sitting, and you just have to argue. You have to also sometimes even scream. It did. If I'm honest, it did give me the initial confidence. But public speaking is much different. Much tougher because you have like 7 minutes, and the moment you put some preparation, you also put some expectation. So you prepare a speech, you want it to, you have it in your head how you want it to go, and then you come to the room and you're like 7 people, and you're fighting against your fears. And I think that's, fighting against your fears is tougher than fighting against any opponent.
Yeah. One of the things I find fascinating about debating, and I want to just touch on this before we move into more things, but I think debating requires a degree of being able to understand logical fallacies and to identify them in other people, and to be able to, you have to really listen to what's being said, but you are listening with the intention to counter and to dig deeper and to present maybe an opposing side. So perhaps it's a bit of a different way of listening and interacting than certainly public speaking ends up being. But do you find that at least some of that has prepared you in some ways for the things that you talk about, or how you investigate topics that you're going to present on?
I think more than debates, we had when we were in college, we were preparing for master's studies, MBAs and stuff in India, and we had this thing for which we prepared called a group discussion. Group discussion is a group of say 10 or 15 people who have made it from the written exam to the next level, and out of those 15, say 2 will be called to the next round, and you are just thrown a topic like let's say, I don't know, the winter in Europe or the vaccination policy, or it could be anything under the sun, or it could be as abstract as why did the chicken cross the road, something like that. And you have 5 minutes. The group has 5 minutes, and you start talking. In that, you have to really make sense. You have to stand out. You have to also at times shut people off, not in a rude way that you come across very aggressive. So they check so many things that, and there are 2 people who are sitting up somewhere and taking notes, and only 2 will go forward. So you can imagine we start doing that while all sitting in a circle, and towards the end of those 5 minutes, we are all standing and trying to almost beat each other up, because your really life depends on this thing. So in that way, I think that was one of the preparation where you have to read about everything. You have to also one of the tricks we were told is that bring your personal story when you don't know anything. Like they asked me, what do I think about the coal is running out in this world? I don't have much knowledge. Bring your personal anecdote, how you saw your grandmother cooking with coal when you visited her. Bring your personal story to get that edge, even if you have no idea on that topic. So that was one of the things that really I learned. And I think Toastmaster is also a platform that encourages you to bring personal stories. And so it was quite a bridge to, like, you give any topic, you can bring a personal angle to it.
How has public speaking been relevant to your professional career?
I think public speaking is one thing, and of course Toastmasters is, I think, we both have been very, very relevant to me. Public speaking definitely gave me the confidence that I am making sense when I'm talking, and people are going to listen to what I'm going to say. So that is a huge, huge confidence, because sometimes in organizations, and I've worked for really, really large banks over the last 13 years of my career, where people are sometimes feel intimidated by big titles. If you're talking to a vice president or a director or a managing director, and sometimes you have to negotiate with clients and people from out who are extremely street smart, to really keep your composure and and have that belief that whatever I'm saying is making sense and people are going to listen, because I know how to structure it. I know how to get reaction out of people. I think that was public speaking that taught me. I wasn't a confident person, and Europe was initially very intimidating from me, coming from India, where I was like quite awestruck with everything that was going here. Public speaking was definitely that tool, if not a weapon, that gave me that confidence to stand up, speak up, and often even shut up.
That's great. I mean, it's good to hear that. I think it's, and personally, I think public speaking is a very powerful personal development tool and professional development tool, and really sets you up for, whilst I was rallying on one of my shows yesterday about it being called a soft skill, because I think, soft skills it give the impression of that it's about how you communicate and how you show up in a professional situation. So, whilst it is part of your communication, it's so much more than that. It's really much more of a critical skill.
Absolutely.
And soft skill really underplays it as being like, well, it's a nice to have. It's not an essential thing. And actually, no, it is. It's really essential, especially now where we're all having to be on Zoom meetings all the time and things like that. It's like we all have to do this now.
It's even harder. And I think one of the another thing public speaking definitely helps you is understanding the person you're talking to. Now, there are things that we learn in public speaking, especially like body language. You can really gauge by looking at the person who's sitting in front of you and their body language, how much involved they are, how much are they really listening, are they really focused, and you can go up and down in your content based on how you are getting the the feedback in terms of just nonverbal communication.
Right.
I think that is amazing. I mean, the whole nonverbal communication is an ocean, and public speaking really, if you know public speaking well enough, you know the basics of it. You know how the person is sitting or standing or giving you eye contact, or what they're doing with their hands when you're speaking. Gives you certain degree of idea of what a person may or may not be doing while you're speaking, and I think that's an important thing. It really helps in meetings, and especially in Zoom, because now you cannot see everybody. You can only see how they're nodding or they are looking at the screen or not. Or if you see the eyes are moving like this, then you're definitely sure they're multitasking. They're looking at something on the screen.
Yeah, exactly that. It's interesting when I've been doing online coaching and speaking for years, and I was initially started off doing that using things like GoToWebinar, which I know it's still around. I know maybe a lot less people use that now. More people are doing Zoom and other things where you have more video, although I think perhaps they have video interaction now where they didn't before. But I was very used to presenting and speaking, coaching with large groups of people without being able to see them and without them being able to see me as well. So it was absolutely essential that everything had to be vocal. And GoToWebinar used to be able to tell you when people were doing things other than paying attention. And now, due to privacy restrictions, they're not allowed to tell you when people aren't being attentive. But you do have to make that assumption, I think, online, that there's so many things to distract us, there's so many temptations. Assume that people are distracted.
It is extremely, I think, we're definitely coming back to Toastmasters. I think the whole Toastmaster community last year acted so fast with the whole Zoom world, and I think it was quite a like, I think many people still struggle with Zoom, how to use it, or Teams, how to use it, how to what to how much screen you should keep, or you're too close or too far. At Toastmasters, we kind of learned it from like looking at each other. Within a month, we were quite an expert on how to use virtual backgrounds, how to make good online presentations. I think that's another big success there that that helped us at our work, because now that you are in your work giving presentation, you really know the do's and don'ts, that because you've done it so many times and you've seen people do it. So I know, of course, meeting in person is the most utmost thing. We all want to do that, but desperate times, desperate measures.
Yeah, and it even got me as far as figuring out how to turn myself into a speaking potato or a speaking puppy or kitten or something like that on Zoom calls. It's like that's quite amazing. Some of the technology that's around at the moment. Mostly, I think we've seen that from people doing it accidentally. Like some weeks back, there was that lawyer guy who accidentally turned himself into a kitten on his Zoom call with a judge and on a professional call, which was frankly hilarious. But yeah, so we hear about when it goes wrong. But those are fun things to play with as a presenter and a speaker, and great engagement tools potentially when used in the right kind of way. And that's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely.
So you've gone a bit further than just public speaking. You've written a book, and you've written a book about really making your challenges, your adversity work for you. And you've called it What's Your Plan B? Tell us a bit about that.
So 2018, I went on a sabbatical, end of 2018, for 3 months to just rejuvenate and relax. And just before leaving, I spoke to I just accidentally bumped into a lady. She was in her mid-50s, I would say, and she was pretty sad. And we started talking. And she told me she and her husband worked for a company for 30 years, and then he lost his job, and now he's not old enough to go in pension and not young enough to find something, and they don't know what to do. And the person I was trying to bounce off ideas like, can he like teach, become a consultant, can he try this? And none of the idea were materializing. Turns out he has not even updated his CV for last 30 years, hates public speaking. One more thing, enabler public speaking. And right now is extremely demoralized because he's sitting at home for a year, which is not fun for anybody.
Sure.
And that really got me thinking. And I'm the kind of person who likes to help. Whenever I hear a problem, I'm not the one who's going to give shoulder. I'm like, let's work towards a solution. But clearly I didn't have a solution for her. Not that she was asking for it, but I just thought like maybe there will be many more people who have gone through this. And I myself have seen it. I mean, my first job in India was at Lehman Brothers, big
Okay.
investment bank. We joined. I was 21. We had rosy dreams, fly over the world, become the new wolves of Wall Street, and work hard and everything.
Right.
And within a year, all the dreams shattered. And the day Lehman got bankrupt, I still remember, and I'm quoting from my book when I say that people with big bonuses, big egos, and big house were reduced to crying. They were like, "I just bought my house. How am I going to pay my mortgage?" Everybody was demoralized, and we were like, within the next 2 weeks, we were still had to come to office. So we were sending resumes to every recruiter, left, right, center. Like I still remember one person, what he did is he got an Excel sheet with all the recruiters possible on God's green earth and PCC'd everybody and sent his CV. And guess how many responses he got?
None.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people who went to competitors for job interviews were said like, okay, 60% pay cut, then only we will have a talk with you. And
Right.
people were depressed, demoralized, and extremely vulnerable. And that conversation I had in 2018 was really deja vu for me, that wow, this really happened to me, this can happen again, and let me exploit this. Because people, when they are on the brink of this kind of professional adversity, feel vulnerable. People need help, and I would like to be of help. So when I started my sabbatical, this was the thought in my mind, and I worked on it. Initially I thought I know enough to write a book, but then as I wrote like 10 pages, I realized, okay, I need help. So I interviewed 25 people from different sectors, different industries, different levels, entrepreneurs, CEOs, politicians, sportsmen, who were very kind and gracious to give me their stories. Some were success stories, people who could turn adversity into benefit, some who couldn't and learned a valuable lesson and shared that. And together I made this book so that people with who are facing professional adversity or are feeling stuck or want to make a change, they can use this and benefit from it.
Yeah, I mean, what an important time for a book like that to be around when so many people have been facing financial and work uncertainty, or either lost their jobs or not being able to continue working, or furloughed or whatever else. During this time, a lot of people are reevaluating and wondering what next. What do they do next? Now, I know there are people out there who teach that you shouldn't even have a plan B because it takes your mind off plan A. So, what's your take on that?
I think it really depends on how you define plan B. How I define plan B is to have a first. Okay, let me start with the story I had in the book. Say your best friend is getting married in Spain, and you are the ceremony master, and you have to go there. And you reach the airport, and the plane is cancelled. What will you do? Will you just give up, or you will look for options? Now let me fly to Paris, and from there let me go there, or let me fly to Madrid and then take a train. Let me fly to Lisbon and then take a bus from there. would you look for these options or not? Would you?
Me, I
Right.
would, yeah.
Exactly, and that's plan B. So what I mean is have a master plan, that is tailor-made for you, that is your goal, your ambition, your drive, what you want to be. And it can be anything from becoming the CEO of a company to having X amount of money in your bank account, or to become the most successful podcast channel in Belgium. Anything can be your master plan.
Anything could happen.
Exactly. But to reach that master plan, you need short-term goals. You need short goals that will enable you to reach there. But these goals will be challenged because the world is changing, you are changing, people around you are changing, everything is changing. So those short-term plans will not always be successful. So you need a plan B for these plans so that you can ultimately reach your master plan. So for everybody who says don't have a plan B, I would ask them to A, read my book, and B, ask them the definition of a plan B. Plan B does not mean taking the focus away from your master plan. Your master plan should still remain there. It's just that you change the path to reach that master plan.
Okay. Now, I do think that it's a good idea to always be flexible in going forward anyway. Like, I'm one of those people who I'm not the biggest fan of the way most people teach goal setting. I think goal setting is like, give yourself a direction to go in, but focus more on who you have to become in order to achieve that, because there's more than one way to make that happen. And there's more than one way to achieve the kinds of things that you want. And sometimes being so focused on one particular goal makes you rigid on anything that doesn't quite fit in with what you've envisioned on being on your path or track to that, which I think is potentially more damaging than beneficial. Would you have some thoughts on that?
I think definitely. I think one of the things is we are sometimes so attached to the work we do, and that we cannot think beyond that. We think this is it. If this fails, our life crashes, and that's not true. Life is like, you will find different ways of working, and I think I've seen a lot of colleagues, friends who love their work and they have loved it, and work also brings success at work also brings vanity. It also brings pride, and it's so difficult to let go of those things when you are thinking of the next option.
Right.
One of the thing I always advise is be like that a leaf that floats in the water. Half of it is completely submerged in water and wet, and half of it is completely dry. If the whole is dry, then it's not floating, and if the whole of it is wet, then it's drowning. And that is the level of attachment and detachment we should have from our work, from the pride that our work gives us, from the perks that we get from our work. And that's only when we'll be able to see out of the box. Because sometimes, in my book, I mentioned all the crises that can affect you. Sometimes it's not you. You are working fine, and then COVID happened. You're working for a tourism company. You are the number one employee there. You're like, your records and performance is off the chart, and then COVID happens, and everything tanks. So it's very important to have that sense of detachment. And it does not mean that you should not focus and do well at what you're doing. When you're doing your work, do it with 100%, but also keep your eyes and ears open, and level of detachment, not from the commitment of work, but level of detachment from the outcomes of the work and the perks and the pride and the vanity that comes from it.
Yeah, I think you put that really well. And interestingly enough, it's something I've noticed come up in a lot of the books that I read, and even just recently, I've been listening to a podcast this week from a guy who's well known in the UK called Darren Brown, who's like a famous mentalist, kind of like a mind magician kind of thing. And that's very much about the sort of psychological the tricks our brain plays on us, or the things that we are susceptible to. And one of the things that come up in that, which I've come across before, is this idea, as you mentioned, that your self-image, your status that you get to in a profession can end up being as much of a hindrance as a benefit to you, because it almost imprisons you, and you have to be kind of perfect. When you're at a certain level, you're expected to be able to do everything excellently well. This is how everyone identifies you, and our brains like things to be simple. And
Yes.
so when somebody shows up and they're doing something different to that, or they're changing direction, we don't always respond well to that. We often will criticize people for doing these things as well. But for us on a personal level, we give ourselves a lot of freedom when we're not overly attached to the outcomes, to the identity of like we get to this level. I've seen this in the martial arts world. In the Bujinkan Ninjutsu, which is the martial arts that I've been in for the last however many years, that all the high level teachers, all the masters, always say that they're just learning as well. They're students. They're students still. It's a very humble attitude, but it is this thing of, well, that allows us to still make mistakes. It allows us to be like, okay, well, I can change things as well. I can still adapt. I'm not locked into this. I'm the master. Everything I say is right, and everything I do is right. That instantly you can fall off from, and I get that's some of what you're saying there.
Yeah, I think those things can get snatched without any notice, and what it can do is it gives resentment. I mentioned a story where I was working in Singapore for a couple of months to migrate a big process from Singapore to India, and it meant for some colleagues there who are supposed to train us that they will lose their job because outsourcing and everything. Some were understanding of it and cooperated, and there was particularly one person who was extremely resentful, who could not hide his emotions and even said things like sweared at us and said pretty nasty things, which in the end costed him his job. I mean, and I think the thing what for him is he was so attached. Like he even said, like, we created this process and you're taking it away from us. And I like, yeah, I'm sorry, but this is not my decision to make. If not me, someone else will do it. I mean, and the level of attachment he had to that was actually counterproductive, I think.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area. I want to ask you. I mean, you said you interviewed a number of people about people who had achieved success, made adversity work for them, and people who hadn't been able to do that. What did you notice? Were there differences? Was it a mindset difference, or was it more of a situational difference? Did it really depend on what was going on? What kind of things did you pick up from those conversations?
I think most of the time it was people who did not, who faced the adversity versus who didn't, were that they did not see it coming. I think that is the number one thing. People did not recognize that this is a crisis. Like one of the stories that I have in the book is of a CEO who started his company and made large profit for the first 3 years, and was really proud. Of course, he should be, and was thought this will go. And the fourth year, when the company was starting to make loss, he just did not see the red flags, and he was like, "We're going to turn around. We're going to make a turnaround." And he told me that. Optimism and denial are very thin lines, and you don't know from when you stop being an optimist and you're actually living in denial. And that's what he said happened to him, that he was living in denial. And when in the fourth year the company took a nosedive, which kind of meant bankruptcy. I think it did mean bankruptcy. He just could not accept it because he did not see it coming. He did not think this can happen to him. And this is like after 3 years of success, there was no reason or no sloppiness from his side that could result into this failure. And sometimes it's not your work. I mean, it's not that you are being sloppy. Sometimes things change, the world changes. Right. It's good to recognize and be a realist. I think most of the time, people who have not been able to make that transition is because they did not see it coming.
Yeah, it's interesting. These are like the cognitive biases that run in our lives all the time, and when you get into those kinds of positions and ways of thinking, you may find that you are less open to those people who are sort of holding their hand up and kind of saying, things aren't looking so good, and we actually need to pay attention to this. No, it's fine. Look how successful we've been for the last several years. I worked in the airline industry for around 12 years, and one of the things we had to do every year was this, they called it CRM. That CRM for them was like crew resource management. And really what that was about was communication between pilots and captains especially, and the crew of the plane, because there have been airline investigations to accidents, to catastrophes, where it has been shown that either the co-pilot or someone in the crew was highlighting something to the captain and it was ignored or dismissed, because these have much more of this, like a lot of people associate more with surgeons perhaps as well, this kind of God complex, almost like this is my zone, this, what I say goes, and so they don't really want to listen to someone who's like, well, you're not a trained pilot, so I'm not even going to listen. The wing's fallen off. No, it's fine. Look, my monitors are all fine. It's like things like that to open people up to this idea that you must listen to the communication and not have feeling that they can't come and tell you things, but also be in that position where you listen and really listen, and you take on board, even if it's to sort of say, okay, here's why that's not the case, or let's take a look at that, we should investigate that further, because we close ourselves off to things. It's a fascinating
and the thing is, when you make these provisions, when you take these things into consideration, it will cause discomfort. It will take away your time, energy to create that plan B or create that backup planning. And it is a bit like insurance. You have to pay a premium, which hurts your pocket, but it will protect you when things go down. And especially in events like a black swan, when that suddenly happens and it just like leaves devastating effect, like what happened with the pandemic. I mean, I now see so many restaurants in my neighborhood that they were really my favorites, that refused to move to home delivery. They were like, nah, we believe in the experience. People going to come here and eat here, and it's all about the experience and everything, which is great. I think that's amazing. But we have in Amsterdam now restaurants now shut down for like almost 6 months now, and if they haven't moved to the home delivery and that mode, then like it's a question of now survival to do that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Being again, it's that flexibility thing and not being too attached to one particular thing. You adapt to your situation, especially when you don't know how long it's going to go on. People who maybe tune into some of my content regularly will know that I'm a big fan of Stoic philosophy, and that I love reading about Stoic philosophy and talking to experts in Stoicism, such as Donald Robertson, who has been a guest on my show before. And I got very, very gratefully, I was schooled in Stoicism on that particular episode, which was a real joy. But one of the things I love about Stoic philosophy is it does talk about this kind of mental preparation, being prepared to be resilient, like at least considering that. Don't assume that everything's just going to keep going well forever. It's not. It's like, not that it's all going to go to rubbish and be horrible forever either. Everything is temporary, and that's what we sometimes lose sight of, and that's where we end up being unprepared. But realistically, anything could happen, and the Stoics would practice this thing. It's almost like a negative visualization, if you like, imagining things that you've got right now being gone from your life. Like, how do you manage it? How do you go through with it and get yourself out of this sort of when things do go wrong, that you don't end up catastrophizing it? You kind of feel a bit prepared, that you can be resilient in the situation and get through it. Because most of us, when we look back on situations like that we've had in our lives, we've got through it. If we had been less worried about it, we would have maybe got through it a bit more easily, right?
One of the things I mentioned in my book is this: the level of preparation. When you do have a plan B, and I have done it with a nice drawing in the book, that when you have a plan B, then when crisis happens, you are preparing. When crisis happens, you just you don't do anything, because we just wait. You wait the storm. You see what it is, what's the impact. Whereas people without a plan B will not do anything. And when there is a crisis, they just go panic, and they just want to just like react. And like I told you, that email with BCCing all the recruiters. I mean, I got I named that zone, that zone of overreaction among people. I call it the toilet paper zone from the classic COVID period, where suddenly there was this whole panic about toilet paper. And that is nothing but lack of preparation. I mean, there is no logical reasoning to hoard toilet papers, but because I can still understand with face mask and sanitizer, but toilet papers make no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
But still people were doing it, and that's what happened when people are caught off guard from a crisis and it suddenly hits. And yeah, it is just the level of not being prepared.
Yeah, I definitely think some people thought there was going to be a huge black market in toilet paper and that we're going to cash in on that. I don't think that's really happened. They're going to be getting through that still for years to come, possibly.
I was shocked when I saw videos of people fighting at shopping malls so passionately over toilet papers. You're like, it's a toilet paper. They were like howling and fighting like their life depends on it.
Yeah, yeah. Looking back on that, I think one of the things that really triggered that was the media coverage as well, because then other people are like thinking, "Oh right, toilet paper. Yeah, let's run out and grab toilet paper because everyone else is doing it." It's like I don't think the media coverage really helped in those sorts of times.
I think it's crazy, and I think even here in the supermarkets, everybody ran out of toilet papers, and
Yeah, here too.
It's funny to imagine, like. I just if I could get hold of those people that I saw on the videos, like crying over, begging, please let me take the toilet papers and stuff. I really want to go back and ask them, like, seriously, 1 year later, what do you think about it? Are you still?
But you know, our minds have a miraculous ability to rationalize things. We'll even rationalize our most irrational behaviors given the opportunity to do so, because none of us like to think of ourselves as being irrational. So we'll explain it away. We'll find a way to do that makes sense.
I'm curious to hear that explanation. I think that will, because it's also good to know that, because then you also get the idea, the level of panic and fear that can happen. I mean, it's when I said I want to talk not for fun, but also genuinely be understanding of the fear that or the reason that triggers such an action. And
I suspect you would have needed to ask them at the time, because now they've rationalized it. Now, the memories have been changed on it and the thoughts and feelings have been changed on it to make it make more sense for them. That's what would be my suspicion, that you won't get the full picture.
And they're willing to share their stories, I will bring one of them.
That could be a whole book. The toilet paper panic. That could be a next book. So let me ask you, I mean, people, anyone who's watching or listening in, who's thinking, well, how do I go about preparing myself for a plan B? Do you have any particular points of advice that they could start thinking about that?
I think in the book I mentioned 4 plan Bs that take care of. First is how to, so let's say I did a market research to find out what are the biggest fears people have when it comes to losing their job. The first one is, I don't have enough money. Second is, I don't have the right skills to find a new position. I don't know enough people who can help me. Fourth is, I don't know what I want to do next. Let me, in my opinion, which I think is a low-hanging fruit and you can go for, is the doubt that I don't know enough people. We all know enough people. We know people all around us. But the question is, have you put enough effort to be connected, to reach out to them? If you haven't, I think that start there. Reach out to your network, ask them how they are, what they are doing, and exchange ideas, not with the myopic intention of finding a job or a business, just to catch up. I mean, build that trust, build that relationship, and that's where you can, and slowly it will bear the fruit. In 2017, I gave a TEDx talk on art of networking, where I always mentioned this, that networking is like a plant. You have to plant it, you have to give water, you have to give it sunlight, and then it will bear its fruit. It will bear its fruit, but it takes time. If you want, I met somebody today and tomorrow they're going to offer me a job, it doesn't work that way. That's not how the cookie crumbles. You need to have patience. So most of the plan Bs can be are not always time sensitive. Like, you can acquire skill. I mean, of course, some skills take longer than the other, but you can do degree, certification, learn things. You can also look for different streams of income in a rather shorter notice. But networking is something that can take years before you are able to bear the fruit. So I think start today. Reach out to the colleagues that you haven't spoken for years, that once were like almost friends, that you worked in the same team and you had a great relationship, but you haven't been in touch for months and years. Reach out to them, talk to them, ask how they're doing, ask what's their situation like. Be genuine in your concerns, be genuine in your questions. And why I push on this particular one, because it takes time. If you start today, then in the longer run, that person will be someone who can give you ideas, inspiration, and even help. But start today.
Yeah, I think that's really sound advice, because I know some people sort of do this thing of like desperately reaching out or networking when they need something, but there are principles that apply just as much to networking as to dating. Like if you show up and you're desperate, there's a certain stink to it that people will run away, and won't want to go near you. People don't want to be around desperation. It's a very repulsing energy and emotion to be in, that people will move away from, and don't want to help. Whereas one of my favorite books, and I talk about it quite often, is by Dr. Richard Wiseman. It's called The Luck Factor. I don't know if you've ever read it, but he like demystifies luck as being this more of a scientific thing, that luck or lack of depends on your belief in it. And if you believe you're a lucky person, you're more likely to act in those sorts of ways. And there were certain behaviors that lucky people who believe they're lucky, do. One of those is building and nurturing their network.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that lucky people do.
I fully agree. And I think like also in my book, I mentioned like, or not just how to reach out when the things are nice, but when things are falling apart, you lose your job or something happens, or you want to change your job, how to reach out and not to be begging or desperate, as you said, and still believe that you are, like, if this person hires you or is willing to give you an opportunity, they are doing a favor, but it's not one way street, because you as a candidate have credibility, have strengths that you're bringing to the table. So it is a win-win for both of parties. So to have that faith when you're doing it, and it definitely comes from I don't want to use the word luck, but definitely due to abundance of confidence. And luck is definitely a factor. I think I personally believe success is a product and not a sum of three things: your hard work, your merit, and luck. If either of them is zero, then you're doomed. Merit is something I personally believe we all have equal. It's how much we use it. Luck is unpredictable, and it is the hard work where we can tweak it. And luck can backfire once, twice, but not always. Sometimes luck will really support you, and that day, if you put your hard work, sky's the limit for you.
I love that, and I appreciate that. I definitely recommend for yourself as well. Check out The Luck Factor, because it really goes into just how much the belief in your own luckiness or unluckiness is vital to success and to having that experience in your life as well. But it's pretty good. But I like your book, and I definitely think people should be checking this out, because this is a really critical thing to have in our lives, especially in this age where we need to be a bit more prepared, resilient, and able to approach things without the desperation, without the neediness, and to be able to rationally rely on our network and also be there for them as well. So really powerful stuff. One of the things I want to make sure we do get to today, and we'll make sure there's a link for your book in the show notes for people as well to go and check that out, is your evaluations, is your skills and evaluations. So I know you're going to come and talk to my Toastmasters Club in a few weeks' time. We'll get that, we'll do a bit more organization on that as well, about evaluations. But tell me a bit about your experience as an evaluator of public speaking.
I think it's fantastic. It's one of the most amazing thing to do in Toastmasters, because you get I love it, because you have 5 minutes to write up an evaluation, and you can be as creative as you want. And I think that's what I love about Toastmasters evaluation, that you have the whole carte blanche to put your creativity. I have learned many skills over the years. One of them is to not make it too much about myself, make it about the speaker, and also to pinpoint, also focus on the content, not just on the delivery, because I think a lot of evaluators that I see today, Toastmasters, focus a lot on the delivery. Delivery is a low-hanging fruit. Content is a tough one, and you have to be very, very observant to make comments on the content. I think just before my 2015 Toastmasters evaluation in Europe, at Porto, I had a evening meeting with one of my friend who's also an amazing evaluator, Sangrita Moitra. She she really was really like hammering, like she was like made me do evaluation of the same speech multiple times, only just on the content, not just on the delivery and stuff. It really helps. And over the years, it's something that has stayed with me, and I love doing it. And it's also some, like I said, Toastmasters, you learn so much that you can use in your life and in your work, that you can like give evaluation and feedback to your bosses, to colleagues, and in a palatable, in a palpable way that does not feel offensive, and yet you are conveying the critical points, the points of improvement. And I think that's something Toastmasters has taught me.
Yeah.
And that's something I've learned from Toastmaster evaluations.
Well, you've beaten me to my follow-up question there, which is where it's transferred into your own life outside of that as well. I think it's one of the things that sometimes puts people off Toastmasters, that when they do a prepared speech, they know they're going to get some feedback on it, and we don't always like that feedback. Sometimes it's things that maybe your talk wasn't as good or as perfect as you thought it was, and
That's a nice feedback to give. I think then the problem is not with the person who's hesitant to get the feedback. It's more the problem with the person who's giving the feedback. A
sure.
feedback is a nice way to see that. Here's the thing: if I do think, and there are times when I think a speaker is not doing a good job, but that speaker does not need like detailed points, like, move your hand at this word or pause here. That speaker needs confidence. That speaker
Yeah.
needs a push. That speaker needs a support. And that's what I'm going to give to him or her. I'm going to tell them, listen, great try, good attempt. What I like is this confidence, and also highlight what they did well, and
Sure.
then present a few things they can do well. So if somebody is in need of confidence and doing it something for the first or second time, going berserk or going butchering that person on the content and making comments like it was not up to the mark, or is really unfair, I think.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm referring perhaps more to people's fear about that they feel that they're going to be criticized in their feedback. And I don't think that really, I've not come across that in Toastmasters really. But sometimes we feel even somebody commenting on our content or our delivery is critical. And to a degree it is, but it's not personal. And that's something you have to get good at, being comfortable receiving feedback as well as giving it to other people, that it's there for you to grow and there for you to develop. And I would agree with you that some feedback is definitely more valuable than others. There's only so many times you want to hear about your vocal variety or things like that, right? It's like, it's often you hear the same feedback kind of things over and over again in Toastmasters, which, as you say, is great delivery.
Good feedback should be like a warm shower. It is refreshing, but it also cleans you.
Yeah, I was privileged to be able to give a very good speaker some feedback in a session a few weeks ago, and I do see it as a privilege to be able to give somebody feedback on it. And I really wanted to make the feedback valuable for her, so I gave her. I saw a few things that she could stretch herself with, and when I sent it to her, she was genuinely appreciative of this, like, yeah, I can definitely do those things, and that's going to take me to another level. And recognizing that's what we want, that's what I want in my feedback, that's what everyone wants in their feedback. If you're giving people feedback, give them feedback that encourages them and is going to say, yeah, here's what's great, and here's what would be maybe a next level for you, or where you can stretch yourself here, or what I would like to see more of in your talks and presentations. And it can be a really powerful gift to give to someone.
Exactly, I agree, and I think Toastmasters, everything we learn at Toastmasters is end of the day something we can use in our life, in our work, in our office, everything. Evaluation is also not just giving evaluation, also receiving evaluation, because you will also receive feedback from your bosses and stuff. How you receive evaluation at Toastmasters also way you can receive feedback from your bosses. And one thing I once told to a lady in our club who was hesitant to take up a board role, because like, the usual, I don't have time, I don't know if I can commit. And I said, doing something new in Toastmasters is like painting your canvas. If it's bad, you can throw it away, but if it's good, you can use the same skills to paint your wall.
Yeah, Great advice. I like that. I like the analogy. Very nice stuff. So you're a great commercial for Toastmasters and also for your own book and for what you teach as well. And I really enjoyed this conversation. If people want to find out more about you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I think I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I have my own website. And I'm right here in Amsterdam. If you want to join me for a drink, always welcome. I have enough beers at my house.
Well, next time I'm in Amsterdam, I'll definitely be taking you up on that, and I'm looking forward to your presentation on evaluations very soon for my club as well, which I'm pretty sure we'll be recording, so we may be able to share that with some people as well. So we're definitely going to stay connected and carry on the conversation. But for everything you shared with us today, thank you. Your book sounds amazing. I'm hungry to read it and know more about having my plan B. And for everyone who wants to check that out and find out more about you and connect with you, there will be links in the show notes. So please do connect with Saby and check out his book. And we'll be back with more episodes very soon. Do check out the show. If you like it, make sure you subscribe to the show, and also that you share it with people. If you enjoyed an episode, share it with your network as well. It's how we grow and get these empowering conversations into more people's hands and ears. So, Saby, anything you'd like to say before we close up today?
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I think few weeks back, we didn't even know each other, and now I've spoken to you also, emails, LinkedIn, and now in person so much that it's amazing. That is the power of, I think, networking and connection. You really do a great show, and I think the way you make your guests comfortable to speak their mind out is amazing. So my compliments on having a lovely show.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And you make a great podcast guest as well. You should do more of it. So thank you so much for your time today. Let's wrap things up there. We'll be back again very soon. Have a great rest of your day.